In this video, we are going to talk about heart anatomy, including heart features and how blood flows in our heart. Here are all the contents that will be covered in this video. Let's get started. There are two types of blood in our body. Deoxygenated blood runs in veins, and oxygenated blood runs in arteries. Oxygenated blood carries oxygen from the lung and delivers them to other cell, organ, or tissue in our body. After the oxygenated blood delivers the oxygen, it will become a deoxygenated blood, which will then return to the heart and lung to receive oxygen. This is called our circulatory system. Now, here's the story of how a deoxygenated blood becomes a oxygenated blood. Hi guys, I am a deoxygenated blood, and now I'm going to get my oxygen in the lung through the heart. Let me show you my journey to get my oxygen. This is me. I am a deoxygenated blood from the arm, ready to get my oxygen. So there are two places to enter the heart, a superior vena cava and an inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava receives blood from the head, neck, upper limbs, and the chest, whereas inferior vena cava receives blood from the trunk, viscera, and lower limbs. Since I came from the arm, I will enter the heart through the superior vena cava. Blood from both superior vena cava and inferior vena cava end up in the right atrium, which is one of the four chambers of the heart. Then the right atrium will pump me out through the tricuspid valve. There are four valves in the heart as well. The purpose of the valves are to move in blood and move them in the right direction. After I go through the tricuspid valve, I will enter the right ventricle. Here is a picture of the four valves from a superior wheel of the heart. The valve we just went through is the tricuspid valve, which is at the lower right corner. In the right ventricle, the ventricle pumps me up and go through the pulmonary valve to reach the pulmonary artery. Even though it's called an artery here, it still carries the oxygenated blood. There are two sides of pulmonary artery, each side connected to a lung. I will go through the right side of the pulmonary artery to reach the right lung. Now I'm in the lung, and now I can get my oxygen. I am an oxygenated blood now. Now that I finally get my oxygen, I became an oxygenated blood. I will then enter the heart through the right pulmonary vein. Just remember, there is another pulmonary vein on the left side connected to the left lung. Blood from both pulmonary veins end up in the left atrium. I will then leave the left atrium through the bicuspid valve. After I go through the bicuspid valve, I will enter the left ventricle. Then the left ventricle will pump me out through the aortic valve, which will eventually lead me to the aorta. The purpose of the aorta is to distribute the blood through the body. This is how a deoxygenated blood received oxygen from the lung and became an oxygenated blood. Now we can closely look at the three openings of the aorta. The one at the right is called brachiocephalic artery. The one in the middle is called left common carotid artery. And the one at the left is called left subclavian artery. The brachiocephalic artery supplies blood to the right arm, and the head, and the neck. And the left common carotid artery supplies blood to the head and the neck, and mainly at brain and face. Whereas left subclavian artery supplies blood to the thorax, head, neck, shoulder, and left arm. Nevertheless, blood can also go past the three openings and descend to the thoracic aorta. Thoracic aorta supplies blood to the organs and lower limbs. Coronary arteries and coronary vein located around the heart. Coronary arteries supplies blood to the myocardium, and coronary veins receive the oxygenated blood from the myocardium. Myocardium is the muscle of the heart. Here is a picture of the heart with the arteries highlighted. Here is the right coronary artery. Right beside it, we have the atrial branches. Inferior to them, here is the posterior interventricular artery. Right beside it is the marginal branch. On the other side, here is the left coronary artery. And here is the circumflex branch. Underneath it, we have the marginal branch. And here is the anterior interventricular artery. In this picture, the veins are highlighted. Here is the coronary sinus. Beside it, we have the small cardiac vein. And here is the right marginal vein. In the middle, we have the middle cardiac vein. On the other side, here is the great cardiac vein, and above it, we have the left marginal vein. Now, let's move on to the SA node and AV node. Here is the SA node. The job of the SA node is to regulate and make sure the heart have a control pattern to pump blood. It will send the signal to AV node. AV node will branch out through the AV bundles, or the bundle of His, and they will wrap around the whole ventricles. The job of AV node is to have a small contraction of the entire ventricle. The ventricles are significant in contraction, since they have muscular and thick walls. In this video, we discussed the two different types of blood in our body and what are their main functions. Then we covered the process of a deoxygenated blood get oxygen and became a oxygenated blood. At the same time, I included content of different heart features in our heart. Then we talked about the aorta and the coronary arteries and vein. Finally, we talked about the nodes in our heart. Thanks for watching. I hope you will find this video helpful.